1. When I was about 13, I was sitting in my house, and I heard these really weird noises outside. We live in the suburbs, so I figured it was just like a dog or something. It sounded kind of like a howling, or maybe a hooting. It wasn't very loud, but I still decided to check it out. For some reason, I walked around my house and decided I was going to jump out of the door and surprise whatever was making the noise. We had small animals around our house before, and they'd always run away before I could see them. Once I jumped out of the door, I see this huge black figure moving really fast away from my house. It was in the trees and looking back. Today I am amazed by 3 things about what I saw. The size of this thing was hard to make out for several reasons, but it was between the size of a chimp and a 6-foot man. It was moving so fast through the trees that I couldn't even distinguish any of its features. And it was also a really dark black. It was broad daylight when this happened, and I would have chalked it up to my imagination if it didn't leave behind a giant broken tree branch. I have climbed on that tree as a kid, and I was able to press all of my weight on that branch as a kid. I weighed about 80 when I could, but still. I called my mom to come and see what had happened and the broken tree branch, but it was long gone, and my mom just said it was probably a squirrel. The whole thing didn't really freak me out, and I never saw what it was to this day. The best way I could describe what I saw was like a giant chimpanzee. I know we don't have those around here, so I have no idea what to make of the whole situation. But that's it. It has been on my mind for a while, and I'm glad to finally talk about it. 2. We are Catholic, and in the town I lived in there was a Catholic church that kept its doors open 24 hours so people could go pray. A little after 2:15 a.m., we were walking and decided to go in. We entered the church through the front and made our way to the stairs facing the altar. We knelt on the stairs and began praying. After about 5 minutes, I heard the side door to my right slam shut. In a quiet church at 2:30 a.m., that is super loud. We both spun in that direction and saw nothing. Before we could speak, the distant sound of running footsteps emanated from the front of the door, then made their way towards the front entrance behind us. It was so quiet otherwise we could follow the sound with our eyes. The footsteps ran past the front entrance if they were human. It would be on their left, to the stairs that led to our right as we faced the front. They ascended the stairs and all sound ceased. We looked at each other dumbfounded, unsure of what to say. Suddenly the church bells began to ring, and instinctively I looked at my watch. It was 2:30, breaking our silence. I remarked that they must always ring at 2:30, and I had never noticed it before. We sat there for maybe 90 seconds discussing what had happened, when suddenly 2 police officers walked into the church. The police station is 2 buildings down from the church. One of the officers asked if we had rung the bells. No, I replied. We were praying. If we had, we wouldn't have even had time to make it back to the altar before you got here. He realized that was true, and the 2 officers walked to the stairs and climbed them. My girlfriend and I sat waiting for them. After maybe 2 minutes, they came back down, announced that not only had they not seen anyone, but that the door leading to the bells was padlocked from the outside. Did you guys see anyone? The same officer asked. These bells never ring at 2:30. We both replied we hadn't. I wasn't going to mention ghostly footsteps, and they thanked us, told us to be careful, and left. To this day I have no idea what we heard, but we both remember it happening this way. What do you guys think? 3. The other night, Sunday night, about 11 p.m. or later, I had a very strange experience that I'm still trying to process, because I've never experienced something so weird before. I was in my bedroom on my computer, and with how my setup is, as soon as you walk in the room, the wall runs parallel to your left, and directly in front of you is my computer desk, and computer nested in the corner with my bed directly to the right, touching the other wall. I had my door shut, everyone in the house was asleep, and all of a sudden, I see out of my peripheral vision a shadow or something coming up behind me on the wall directly to my left. It lasted in all about 1 second, and then turned around to look at the wall to instantly see nothing, and then turned around in my computer chair to see nothing. I thought I was just imagining it or something, so I turned back around to my computer when I suddenly felt this very noticeable, cool breeze of air shooting at my legs and lower half of my body. So much that I immediately, upon feeling this breeze, I looked down and thought, what on earth? I could actually see my hair slightly blowing from it, and there was no possible way a breeze could have happened like that. It is as if someone had set up a window fan on the ground, about 5 or 6 feet away, and aimed it at me, with it set on low. As soon as I began to feel the initial breeze, the air around me changed drastically. I felt it get really thick and full of static. I'm not sure how else to describe it. Not only did all my hair start immediately standing up, but my body reacted to whatever it was. At this point I knew it was something paranormal, and I felt like it was trying to attack me. I'm a Christian, and so I professed the name of Jesus several times and prayed, and literally within about 10 or so seconds of this, I must have angered whatever it was, because the static feeling and the breeze grew much more intense for about 10 or so seconds, and then it finally went away. When I initially saw the shadow on the wall coming up behind me, I didn't feel evil. I didn't smell anything. I didn't feel I was being watched or anything. The only thing I can describe is that I felt an energy come toward me from behind. It was definitely noticeable enough that I could have sworn maybe one of my family had come into the room right behind me. The only way I can describe it is if someone fast-paced walked right up behind you. You just sense it. It didn't terrify me or anything, but the whole thing was just so strange, and I'm still trying to process what happened. But it really just proves to me that there are things out there, so out of our realm of reality, that we're all so used to. 4. So my friend, we'll call her T, texted me last night at 2:51 a.m., saying that she has to talk to me in the morning because today was unbelievable. What time are you free? Being that I am a night owl and was still up, I immediately texted her back, as she is quite the opposite of a night owl, and I asked her if everything was okay. She then asks me if I wanted to talk now because she was terrified. I got out of bed and went to the living room and called her up. She was sobbing. T is a very rational-minded person, doesn't get her feathers ruffled easily, and generally remains pretty calm. So in the 6 or 7 years I've known her, this is only, maybe, the second time I've heard her cry. Anyway, on to the meat and potatoes of why I'm posting. She tells me that she was out with her mom earlier yesterday, for a few hours after having a rather stressful day. Too long didn't read, she sustained a work injury just a few months ago. Employers being a jerk about compensating her from it. Comes back home to her house with her mom, and goes about doing something in the kitchen, while her mom heads for the living room. Her mom then called her into the living room, and sounded distressed about something. T enters the living room. She is met with the sight of unused shotgun shells strewn everywhere in the living room. Immediately she is freaked out, thinking there was possibly an intruder, and goes about her house checking for signs of forced entry, footprints in the snow, etc. Finds absolutely nothing indicating someone broke in. Now the shotgun shells were already in the house. Her boyfriend who lives with her hunts, and she had earlier in the day put the box of shells up on the dining room table. They had just gotten a new English bulldog puppy, so she didn't want her getting into them. While T and her mother were out, the new puppy was in the crate, and their other dog, Remy, was out and about. Remy is a bit older and well trained, has never had any interest in messing about with shotgun shells in the past. The box remained on the table in the dining room, empty, while all the shells were in the living room. The box had no signs of damage whatsoever. Her mother asks her if there's any chance that her boyfriend came home from work to get something. But he is a CO and he is absolutely not allowed to leave the premises during a shift, and wouldn't be due back home until morning. So then, being the rational-minded person that she is, she decided to have the dog sniff the shells to see if they showed any interest in them at all. She had Remy sniff first, and as expected, she was nonplussed by it. Then she had the puppy sniff it, and this is where things get really weird. The moment the puppy's nose came into contact with the shell, she immediately fell onto her side legs and went stiff out in front of her, and she convulsed for about 10 seconds. Once she came to, the puppy stood up and immediately vomited. Later, after her mom had left, T is now rightfully paranoid to be in her house alone. She has decided to sleep on the couch now with the dogs and a handgun beside her because, at this point, she's still not convinced that it wasn't an intruder. While she's laying there, she notices that Remy is staring at something. T's knee-jerk is that Remy is staring at the flashing lights on the internet modem, and just being a dopey dog. But she follows Remy's line of vision and she is staring at a completely bare part of wall, with nothing on it or around it. T starts trying to break Remy's focus and get her to follow commands. She is a very well-trained and obedient dog, and T couldn't get a response out of her, not even a flinch. Then she hears what sounds like a fly buzzing in another part of the house and goes to investigate. Again, trying to be rational and thinking maybe she caught sight of the fly, but then lost it and that's why she's staring. T is unable to find the source of the buzzing and comes back into the living room. Remy is now staring at a completely different part of the wall which T inspects, and there is nothing around. It is just a bare wall. Then Remy begins to growl at this otherwise empty space. At this point, T has had about all she can handle of creepiness and grabs her stuff and heads to spend the night at her parents' house. Now there are a few additional pieces that I feel are relevant to this, and figuring out what the hell might be happening here. One of which being that T had bought this house from her maternal grandmother. This is the same house in which her maternal grandfather passed away, prior to T being born. T has admitted to experiencing catching someone or something out of the corner of her eye standing at the top of her stairs. She was able to ascertain that it was a tall and broad figure, before doing a double take, and whoever or whatever she saw disappeared. T's mother confirms that the grandfather was a tall, broad-shouldered man, but that he was a very gentle and kind man. T's grandmother passed away this past June. Now, T is of Ukrainian descent, and I believe her family are practicing Ukrainian Orthodox Christians. Why T and I find this might be relevant is that in their religion, like most, it is frowned upon for a couple to live together before marriage. T told me that none of this started happening until her boyfriend moved in with her. So maybe she has angered her grandparents and they're trying to scare her. There was also a nightmare T had the first night her boyfriend had moved in. In the nightmare, T and her boyfriend were both asleep in their bedroom, when an intruder came in and shot them both dead in their bed. She also explained to me that in their religion there is belief in premonitions, and she thinks that this dream might have been one. Now she's even more freaked out, being that she just found ammo inexplicably strewn around her living room. Possibly this was her grandparents warning them of things to come. Additionally, T's boyfriend's mother had come by their house a few times, while they were away to water the plants and check on the house. According to T, his mother is able to feel the presence of otherworldly beings. His mom told them that she had been followed around the house by a man everywhere she went in the house, and that it gave her an uneasy and unwelcome feeling. Lastly, T went and got a massage earlier this year by a gentleman who also practiced Reiki. Now, I'm not all too familiar with Reiki, but I know it claims to have something to do with energy channeling. Anyway, while she was getting the massage, the therapist began to cough and gag like he was being choked. T asked if he needed to take a break to get some water or something, to which this guy replies, "No, my throat is fine. It's your energy is black, and it's bad. I can't be around it." Neither of us really have any idea what this means. But the way we interpreted it, especially after last night, was that maybe she has a demon or evil spirit attached to her. We just want to get some input on what the hell has happened, and what she can do about it. I already suggested she get a bunch of crosses and rosaries around her house, as she is a religious person. She was going to call a priest today, but she's concerned he won't help her because, in her faith, you aren't supposed to believe in ghosts or spirits or anything paranormal. So if anybody could help us to make heads or tails of this situation, we would greatly appreciate it. 5. A few things about me. I live alone in the state of Utah, and I have heard several strange sounds around my house. I can't explain them because they are too anomalous. So I was sitting down in my couch at around 11 p.m. watching TV, and I started considering going to bed, since I was extremely tired due to being up since 4 a.m. for work. I watched for about another 45 minutes before going to my room to get some shut-eye. I recall vividly that I woke up around 2:30 in the morning, and I heard a few footsteps. I decided to go to the bathroom, so I get up and head to the door when it swings open extremely fast, nearly breaking the door. I was scared a bit, and I just shrugged it off to maybe some strong wind, since the window outside my room was open, and I forgot to close it because I was too tired. So I head to the bathroom and pee. When I come back, I find that my bed's blankets had strangely disappeared. I was really frustrated because it was really cold and I didn't want to sleep the rest of the night, with a strong breeze disturbing me. So I go downstairs to the basement and I find a cover to use until the next day. I got into bed and I remember that I forgot to close the door. I get up, tired, and go to close the door when the door strangely slams on its own with immense force. At this point, I'm pretty suspicious, and I start to suspect something is going on. And all of a sudden it hit me. Maybe I was being watched from my own house. I never believed in paranormal activity, but the recent events concerning what is called the supernatural is making me think twice. I, being too tired to care much, slouched onto my bed and fell asleep instantly. I wake up the next morning and go downstairs to get a cup of milk, when I notice that the whole kitchen is in a complete mess. The table is upturned, cutlery everywhere, and there was water spilled everywhere. This is when I decide to call a priest in, and he performs an exorcism around the entire house, and can detect several demons and ghosts. I ask if there is a way to cleanse my house of the demons, and he says, there is a way, but it might take time. I agree, but I am pretty pissed as I can't take much more of the paranormal activity going around in my house. The next night was the same, not much different, and this time I go to the bathroom to find my sink destroyed. I ask a friend for advice, and he isn't much help at all. I go home really pissed and I watch a bit of TV before falling asleep. I am woken up by a sudden knock at 11:40 p.m. I ask to myself, confused, who would knock at this hour? I get up and open the door and there is no one there. I shrug it off to some prank, since our area was known for a bunch of idiots who would prank people. Not more than 5 minutes later I hear another knock. And I run this time to the door and open it, and guess what? Nobody was there. This time I thought to myself that I would stay right next to the door, and before I knew it there was another knock. I opened the door so fast it slammed back, but opened again. No one was there. And now I know that it is probably more of the paranormal trash. I ignore the next few knocks and fall asleep. The next day the priest arrives with a Bible and, for 4 hours, keeps reciting verses. I was praying that it would work, and thanked the priest after the exorcism session, and I wait. At about 10:30 p.m. I hear more stupid noises. And this is my breaking point. I finally decide to do the thing I should have done years ago, and I move out of the house. In fact, I moved to another state just to make sure, and I went to Texas, and luckily there was no paranormal activity. Whatever was going on at the house, I'm sure I had a few ghosts and a demon. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 38. Thank you very much to everyone who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Can I just say, if you have any advice for the people in these stories, of course, people do share them hoping that, people who may have experience or just opinions on what's happening, if you could click on through and post it on the Reddit thread, or you can post it in the comments here, because I'm sure they will come and see the stories eventually. But either way, if you have advice, please do share it, and it would be appreciated, I'm sure. Well, speaking of spooky things, I'm hoping I'll be able to clear my weekend out, and I plan on doing a Friday the 13th marathon over the weekend. It's always been one of my favourite kind of franchises. Ever since I was a kid, ever since I was, quite frankly, probably far too young to be watching those films, I was always a fan of Jason, so I didn't see the first one first. I can't remember which one it was I saw first, but he was pretty much full-on Jason, the dark clothes, the machete, the hockey mask. And then a few years later I went back and I saw the first one, and I thought it was okay. And I think I appreciated it a little while after that, maybe a couple of years back when I did my last rewatch. And appreciated it more that time for what it was, because what it was intended to be at the time. And it's actually quite a sad story in many ways. I see the Friday the 13th films in some ways being what Rambo became. There was a story with a point to it in the first movie, and then it became something a bit more fantastical and spectacular. It's not to say it's a bad thing, but it did certainly move away from what was originally intended. Anyway, so I saw that, and then eventually I saw number 2, and I was like, well, why the hell is he running around with a sack on his head? And of course, in the third film, we got proper Jason. The more iconic Jason, I guess you would say. Which actually, I was watching a documentary. I can't remember what it was called, but 6 hours long this thing was. Took you through all the films, lots of interviews with people involved. I even saw some faces I don't remember them being in that. But the people who then went on to become quite famous. That was pretty cool. And that kind of gave me the interest to rewatch those movies again. I was even actually looking for like a little miniature statuettes. Just like a tiny little thing, but sadly I can't find anything. At least not anything that looks actually like the character. You can get those like Funko Pop figures and things like that, and the ones with the big heads or the deformed in some way. Not really what I'm looking for. And I just realised I'm rambling, so I'm going to shut up. And thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.